Hermione sat down on a fallen log near the shore of the lake that separated Hogwarts from Hogsmeade. She reached down and picked up a large stone. With all of her strength, she hurled the rock out into the lake, wishing she could have thrown it at the doctor instead. The water around where the stone landed churned as the merman poked his head above the water and shook the stone at her. With his other webbed hand, the merman rubbed at the top of his head. Hermione didn't speak Mer, but got the general idea from his tone.
Sorry,
she replied sheepishly. After a few more choice, unintelligible words, the merman tossed the rock over his shoulder and dove back into the lake. Hermione shivered and hugged her robe closer to her body. She watched as the steam from her breath rose and dissipated into the autumn night sky. She wasn't sure who she was angrier at, Ginny, the doctor, or herself. The image of Ginny, one of her best friends, in the arms of the doctor played over and over again in her mind. She couldn't believe that Ginny would do something like that to Harry, especially with the man Ginny knew Hermione had a major crush on. She silently berated herself for thinking the doctor had actually been interested in her. Even though he had accepted her offer to go to the Halloween ball with her, he had never told her that he'd fancied her. Putting her head in her hands, Hermione moaned,
"Why me?"
Because like any child, the universe likes playing with its most interesting toys more often than the dull, boring ones, the doctor replied from behind her. At least, that's what I keep telling myself, he added. Hermione spun around, surprised that the doctor had managed to make it down to the beach without making a sound.
"Go away. I have nothing to say to you,"
she snapped and then turned her back to him. Actually, that'll make things go a whole lot easier, considering how much I have to say to you. We won't be struggling to see who gets their point across first, the doctor replied. He sat down on the other side of the log, despite her pivoting on her end to keep her back towards him. A cold breeze blew over the lake and caused Hermione to shiver even more. You're shivering. It must be cold out here, he concluded. He slipped off the second-hand robe Tonks had gotten for him and draped it over Hermione's shoulders. Hermione was about to rip off his robe and toss it in the doctor's face when she saw him out of the corner of her eye. Something didn't seem quite right. She turned to get a better look at him when another cold breeze assaulted them. The extra robe helped a little, but she still shivered. She cocked her head to the side as she noticed the doctor hadn't reacted to the cold wind at all.
"Why aren't you shivering?"
she asked him, her curiosity overriding her anger for a moment. What? Oh, that. Well, you see, the planet I come from has much greater temperature extremes than yours does, so this is actually well within my comfort zone, the doctor replied.
Honestly, Doctor, I don't know what game you're playing at, but please don't insult my intelligence,
Hermione said sharply.
I suppose you want me to believe that you're an alien, and that what I saw in the common room was some strange alien custom that doesn't mean anything,
she snapped. Her comment made the doctor smirk a little. It's your extremely above-average intelligence that I'm banking on, Miss Granger, he assured her. And yes, I am an alien. But what you saw in the common room wasn't an alien custom. It's pretty much how any father, anywhere in the universe, reacts when reunited with a daughter he thought he had lost, he told her. Hermione rolled her eyes at the doctor.
Now you want me to believe Ginny Weasley is your daughter?
She scoffed.
I would like you to leave now,
she said coldly and turned away from him again. The doctor stood up and stepped closer to the lake, staring into its black waters. I thought she was dead. She died in my arms after a madman shot her on the planet Messaline, he said softly, not knowing if Hermione was listening. She was born there as well. I only had 13 short hours to be with her from when she was born to when Cobb murdered her, he explained, remembering the pain of losing Jenny. He smacked his head as things started to make sense. Of course! Why did I listen to Martha? Jenny was within the first 15 hours of something similar to a regeneration event. The vortex energy would have been able to heal just about anything, he babbled. Hermione could hear the genuine sadness in his voice and began to let go of her anger. That was, until the rational part of her mind protested again.
How did your daughter manage to get from a different planet to here when she was an infant? She pointed out. The doctor turned away from the lake and Hermione and thought she saw a tear in the corner of his eye. That's a very good question, and one I plan on asking her later, the doctor replied. Right about now, Ginny is trying to explain things to Harry, he told her. I really hope she's doing a better job than I am,
he muttered. The doctor tried to think about how to explain what it was to Hermione. Usually, things weren't that difficult. He would show the humans his nifty bigger on the inside box, and they would be amazed. Dealing with a witch who did the seemingly impossible on a daily basis made things much harder. That thought triggered an idea. Hermione, I'm not even a wizard, he admitted. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his sonic screwdriver. This isn't a wand. It's my sonic screwdriver, he told her.
What are you talking about? I've seen you do magic,
Hermione snapped at him. Before saying anything else, she paused as she thought about the past month. The only time she could actually remember him doing magic was at Stonehenge, and then the only thing he did was amplify his voice. It would explain why he left her to pull off a magical miracle while he led the Dementors away. She looked closer at his wand, and his explanation made even more sense when she saw the metal exterior. Wand theory stated that every wand must be made out of something either taken from or given by a magical creature encased in some sort of wood exterior. The combination of the two substances was what helped a wizard to focus their powers. Not wholly convinced yet, she asked,
What about the time Tonks saw you do magic to defeat the Death Eaters in the ice cream parlor?
Even though things weren't going as well as he had hoped, the doctor puffed up his chest in pride over his favorite invention. Like the name says, this device uses concentrated sonic energy to do just about anything. Scan things, hack into computer systems, and manipulate matter, he boasted. His pride slipped a little when he admitted, the only thing it doesn't really work on is dense cellulose. Hermione started giggling despite herself.
Your screwdriver doesn't do wood?
She laughed. The doctor ran his hand through his hair. Well, I liked the name when I built it, and I never got around to changing it, he muttered. Here, I'll prove what it does, he offered. He held the screwdriver in front of his face and adjusted it to its lowest power setting. Take this and point it at the water and press that center stud, he suggested. Hermione took the screwdriver and did as he instructed. Small waves in the lake radiated out from the area where she was pointing. Now slide that ring near your index finger clockwise, he said. Hermione slid the ring and watched as the wave changed in length and speed. The merman from before stuck his upper body out of the water again. Will you two air breathers cut it out? I'm trying to hunt down here, he yelled. Sorry, I forgot about how sound waves propagate through water, the doctor apologized. The merman cocked his head to the side, surprised that the air breather could speak flawless Mer. Yeah, well, just knock it off, okay? He requested before diving back underwater.
How was he speaking English?
Hermione asked in wonder. Mer people didn't have the ability to make human speech sounds above the water. Oh, sorry. I always forget to mention that part, the doctor said absently. Our scaly friend over there wasn't speaking English. In fact, it sounded like he was speaking a rather quaint dialect of aquatic Silurian, he lectured. You heard English, because my ship and I have a symbiotic relationship, and she uses me as a lens to project a telepathic field through. She knows every language since the dawn of time, and thanks to the telepathy, so do I, and everyone else around me. It makes things ever so much easier when you travel as much as I do, he explained. Hermione was speechless for a moment. Wizards very rarely use translation spells due to the massive headaches they brought on. She had heard one account of a witch who had suffered a stroke after prolonged use of the translation spell she used to help broker a peace agreement with the Highland ogres. Hermione hadn't felt even a hint of discomfort, and wouldn't have known something was translating for her if the doctor hadn't mentioned it. That was the pebble that finally tipped the scales in the doctor's favor.
You actually have a spaceship?
She asked, not in a disbelieving way, but more of an excited,
I can't wait to learn everything I can
way. The doctor chuckled before answering. Yes, I do. I left her parked in Hogsmeade, he replied to an astonished Hermione.
Who else knows all this?
Hermione inquired. Well, there's Ace, Ginny, obviously, and I expect Harry and Ron know by now as well. Oh yes, Professor Dumbledore knows who and what I am, but I think he's some sort of groupie that I tend to collect every now and then, the doctor answered.
Is Ace an alien as well?
Hermione asked. Oh, no, she's human. I found her stranded on a faraway planet and sort of adopted her, the doctor replied. The only other Time Lord that I know of is Ginny. The rest are all gone. We're the last two of our kind, and she's a genetic variant clone. he said sadly. The loneliness in his voice tugged at Hermione's heart. She stood up and walked over to the doctor.
"Why are you telling me all this?"
she prodded gently. She smiled at the awkward and somewhat terrified look in his eyes. In his many years, the doctor had faced countless threats to the very existence of the universe. He had stood in a cave on a planet in the event horizon of a black hole and gone face to face with Satan himself. With that said, he was now faced with something that terrorized him more than anything else. His palms grew sweaty, and sweat broke out on his brow. He closed his eyes and took a calming breath, fighting down his urge to flee. When he opened his eyes, he decided to fight through his fear. "Because I fancy you, Hermione," he admitted, his voice weak. Once again, Hermione felt like she could have flown without any silly old broomstick. She took another step forward and placed her hand in his.
"It's getting late. Why don't you walk me back to the castle?"
she suggested.
"Tomorrow we can go to Hogsmeade and you can show me your ship,"
she told him.
"While we're there, we should also figure out what costumes we're going to wear to the ball,"
she stated and squeezed his hand affectionately. A relieved smile spread across the doctor's face as he escorted Miss Granger back to the castle. Only one small fear tugged at the back of his mind. Vortex. I hope River doesn't show up. I have no idea how I would explain to her that I'm falling for someone else, he thought.